This is a PowerWorks podcast short with Glenn Power and me, James Pikeway.
We've gone through a small time period of some great puddles and some crappy weather. And the first thing that started coming to my mind is something that you've been talking about is sensor misfiring and how people have dealt with that. And it's amazing. Our cars are so electronic. There are so many sensors. Vehicles get beaten up with weather, yet you start going through puddles, you start going through snow. Joey Woo has had the same issue. He's been driving around in a car, all sorts of sensor warnings. Car's okay, but the sensors just don't work well with the weather.
No. I mean, you've got to so in the hot market, which is where we are in a hot region. One of the problems with electrical is the heat and anything that's in direct contact with the sunlight, so the UV, breaks down the insulation on it. And a lot of the insulation and the sheathing and weatherproofing, quote unquote, gets broken down by that. So then dust, then in the last few weeks with the rain, moisture gets in. And then what happens is, if it's not an immediate issue, it's a slow corrosive effect of the water. Now, we don't have salt on the roads here.
Thankfully. So, although we do have quite a bit of, if you're parking down by the beach, you do get that.
And we've mentioned before, people that live by the beach, you can tell, because they do have corrosion, which is unusual for vehicles here. So that's one of the bigger issues. But obviously in a colder climate, one of the issues is the water gets in and there's salt in it, which is making it even more corrosive to the electrical terminals, but also that water freezes, and when it freezes it expands, so then you get things spread apart and cracked and broken open, and that does happen quite often in a colder climate. So water can be a pain, but here it's the unfamiliarity with it. People aren't used to driving in it. So I was talking to DJ when I arrived this morning. We had the BMW that we talked about a few weeks ago.
Yeah, this is that one
with the first lot of rain that we had.
Yeah.
So that's been written off as we knew it would be, and he's had his settlement figure sent through. The guy's from the UK. We know about driving in water all the time, but the difference is it comes out of the blue here because there's no real drainage. So all of a sudden, what looks like it's just a bit of water is actually just 7, 8, even a foot deep, and it's like game over when you hit it too fast. So you do have to be careful. Something I'm unsure about is, obviously, an EV will be okay in the rain and in standing water, and obviously there's no air intake because there's no internal combustion. So you don't necessarily have to worry about the water getting into the engine because there isn't one.
Right. So
does that mean you can drive into a water pond, as they call them here, flat out in an EV? No issues. Heavy, batteries on the bottom.
Okay, so here's the two issues we have. First of all, you won't have those air intake issues. You won't have some of those challenges. But any vehicle that you drive flat out into a puddle with, you're going to have the potential issue of, one, your brakes are going to be soaked.
Yep.
So there's no stopping.
Yep.
2, your brakes are going to be soaked, and you could hydroplane. So now there's no stopping anyway, but your brakes aren't working well. 3, how good are your windshield wipers? Because inevitably you go screaming through the puddle, and then you can't see anything.
Yep.
And you're hydroplaning, and you can't put on your brakes, and the person in front of you who went through the puddle has stalled because they're not in an EV, and now you've got a multi-car pilot.
In the water.
In the water.
And then you've cracked your battery cell, and everyone in the water is getting electrocuted by 40,000 volt.